there is often this stigma around ADHD, especially when it comes to being a high performer. Do you remember when you were diagnosed for the first time with ADHD, and what was the process like?
It's something that is relatively new to me that yeah, I do talk about it a lot. So I was having a lot of trouble. Like my head was literally hurting. Like my eyes were always bloodshot. I couldn't understand how I wasn't able to keep up with, the administrative side of what I do. Put a camera on, throw me into a meeting that I wasn't even supposed to be hosting. I'll kill it. Like that's what I do. This is my gift, my superpower again. Just speaking to people and making sure they're having a good time. But yeah, I was really bothered by the fact that I couldn't complete tasks, and not only at work, but it was spilling into my personal life. Like the house would be messy. My fiance at the time, now wife, was always complaining about, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you forgot to make dinner. You started making dinner and left the burner on, and now the the dinner and the pot is burnt. These are things that were freaking me out in a way, as well as the fact that I wasn't being able to keep up with all the craziness taking place on social media. If I did get on social media, I would be in a daze for hours and hours and hours, and the whole day would fly by. There was a little bit of depression in there as well, where I didn't feel like myself. Uh, I was again feeling very shameful about the fact that I wasn't able to complete simple tasks. I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning. Honestly, like these are things that were affecting me in ways that made me feel like, again, I wasn't myself. I wasn't Vince Bracey. I wasn't being the hardest working man in showbiz. I wasn't performing to my full self or even half of who I felt that I was or could be. All these things made me take the time to go and find a doctor, find a therapist, a psychiatrist, take some tests, answer a bunch of questions, and eventually they all confirmed what I've kind of felt already, that I did in fact have ADHD, and that I would say that I think any kind of diagnosis for people is usually looked at as a bad thing. For me, it was more of a relief because now I could put a name on what I was feeling. Now I could put a name on all these thoughts rushing around my head, and it's not. I'm not going to say it's not a curable disease or anything like that, but there are methods, there are techniques that can be used to put into action to help you function better as a human being. There's also medication and stuff like that, which I have tried. And, everybody reacts to that stuff differently. But certain simple things, such as writing things down, which everybody says is, oh, just write it down. Just write it down. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. It's very, very hard, still to this day. Very, very hard for me to remember certain things. But yeah, just building certain practices and habits, I guess, is the number one way. Just as people that don't have ADHD, or what is the word I'm looking for? Not neurotypical. There we go. Neurotypical people, they still struggle with remembering things, remembering people's names, scheduling things. All the same tactics that you could use to become a better adult, if you will, and make sure that you're adulting properly and correctly. These are all things that I can put into action, but with little tweaks that make it easier for me to either remember things or actually.
Kind of cut out there. Now, that's so I want to first give you your kudos for sharing. I think when we talk about uh, if folks have been diagnosed with said issue or whatever you want to call it can be debilitating at times. But just you talking about that and giving it a name and having an understanding of yourself and becoming more educated on ADHD, it sounds like that you've been able to basically implement certain things in your life that has made it easier to manage some of the um, I guess, common symptoms of dealing with ADHD. The other thing that I want to go back to, and it's something that we've talked about as far as me and marriage and family therapy in some of my training, is narrative. Like we all have these narratives and we all have these stories about ourselves, and those stories sometimes dictate how we go or how we move in life. I'm going to give you your kudos again because you have not allowed ADHD to one become your identity, but then secondly, you haven't allowed the narrative of what ADHD does to some people. You
Mm.
haven't allowed it to debilitate you and how you move in life, which is amazing because it is